Hey everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Cosmic Crit. My name is Patrick, and I am the GM here once more, bearing my soul, laying prostrate before the ungrateful, victorious players that I enumerate here in the intro as my so-called friends. They are Tyler, Rebecca, Miles, Jabert, and Drew. Welcome back, everyone. Say hello.
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 Hello, hello.
Hi. Not one of you could do me the courtesy, could do me the kindness of digging deep and laying down your PCs to die this season. Not one of you.
Well, Jabert got close.
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah, you didn't try hard enough. GM Patrick needs a win here, guys. But thankfully, we're just going to continue to play Starfinder until I murder the entire party, I think is what we have to do. So, this is our season 2 wrap-up episode, everyone. We're here tonight to answer our players' questions about the season, these characters, what's happened in the Cosmic Crit story, things like that. And we're also going to have some time to answer our listener questions. But yeah, first off, let me ask you guys, now that we are done officially with the season, how are you guys feeling?
Relieved.
Pretty good.
Keep coming.
Couldn't do it.
Tyler, how are you doing?
I'm a little sad. These recordings are always a little melancholy. But I'm excited to get to talk about the season as a whole. So that's nice.
Yes, like I said at the end of season 1 when we did this, like so much of what I was experiencing was cloaked in secrecy. So now it's open book time, literally and figuratively, as you guys have the PDFs. I've shared them with you if you want to take a look. And if you have questions about that in the AP itself, the adventure path itself, we can do that.
I'll kick off with a question for you, Patrick. Was there something that you had planned or anticipated that the group would do that we took a curve? Was there an instance that you thought we might do and prepared that we just completely missed?
That you missed. Well, I mean, I can tell you now, and you guys knew this, you missed a good deal of the prison moon of Gulta as you kind of beelined it towards
that one.
towards the back. Yeah, and then went straight out the way you came. I don't have that map in front of me, but I know of two main locations you guys didn't get to, one of which was the infirmary, I think, in the prison. And I can tell you the only thing that was there was a single doctor who, you can bully pretty easily and then just get a whole bunch of medical supplies for free. And if memory serves, that's about all that's over there.
Yeah, I remember making copious notes about a lot of the stuff, like the drone control room in the prison and the infirmary.
Yes.
And going back to mess up the dude who gave us the shakedown when he was intaking the prisoners.
The first, that drone control room, you didn't go into either, but the robots that were in there came out and started attacking you. There was maybe another Aeon guard in there, I think. And then there was a cafeteria you didn't get to. So just a couple things. I enjoyed that entire book because it is indeed set up in a way where there's no key card. You can't get to this area until you have the blue key card, or you can't get to this part of Outpost Z until you talk to this person. You just go anywhere and do anything in that adventure path, which feels very freeing, very different from a lot of the other kind of adventures that we run, which are usually a little more linear dungeons or kind of a series of fights that happen in a certain way, or exploration that happens in a certain way. So Gulta, very different.
Well, I was going to say, as a player, I agree with you, but at the same time, I liked the second book because the mission was very clear. I never really second guessed at any point, maybe in Outpost Z, but especially in the prison, it was we knew what we needed to do. We knew how what we needed to do like that we needed to get out. We knew like that the mission was clear. And I appreciate that, even though the solution wasn't clear. Like so we had a different kind of freedom. It wasn't just like open, go do whatever you want. It was like there was structure to it, but the path that you took was very open.
Yeah, while I very much enjoyed the kind of open nature of the first book, I also felt a little anxious making any decision because I wasn't sure. It was like, okay, here's the town. What do you want to do? And like there were like a few different things that we could start to do first. And that opened up some cool problem solving and discussions between the group. But I didn't know what we were necessarily trying to achieve in terms of
how do you bring down an occupant force, you know, and the answer is bit by bit. Right. Which is kind of how the adventure is written.
And I didn't realize that would be the actual answer. I thought, that's too big. That's too big of an answer. Like, I didn't think that we would be freeing the settlement in book one. I thought that might be a thing that we work towards the entire story.
Yeah, I think at one point you asked one of the villagers, like, well, how many Aslanti are here? And like there is an actual number that is given in the book for the occupying force, which is like 18 or 20, somewhere in there. Which like you didn't have to kill all of them. Like there were some that were, you know, taken out by like circumstances or whatever. Some that went with Lieutenant Sharu that like got killed like on that the Discovery of the Royal Adventure, for example. But yeah, when you hear like, oh, well, there's like 20 people standing in your way, that seems insurmountable.
Right.
But as it should be. If all those cadets had taken you guys on at once, you would have lost, and it would have been a really weird brig season where you guys are interrogated and tortured for multiple episodes.
Right. And I know we touched on this when it happened at book one, but I do have to ask you now that the adventure's over, we all survived. I know you made a gag about us just, you know, rolling it over, but how did it feel being able to GM a monster that you created?
Right. Yeah.
All the way back in book one. Forgot.
Synapse
Worm
of Empire. Actually, I had 3 monsters in the back of that book, and that was like a suggestion list. I think I pitched like 6 or 7 different ones, and they're like, oh yeah, do this and this. I was like, really, all those? And then when I found out the Synapse Worm was going to be an adventure path, I was very excited. I wanted to like beef up that scenario and be like, oh, you know what? Why just fight one when you can have 2 Synapse Worm? But it's so funny. It was very exciting when I got to write that, because I think it was the first thing that I wrote for Paizo almost 2 years ago now. But by the time that we had gotten to like playing that bit, I think I'd already finished writing an entire adventure path. Submitted that. So I mean, my enthusiasm was great in writing it. It is a tough monster. I've heard of, you know, people having some difficulties with it, other crews that are like, oh, that's cute, and try to tame it and keep it as a pet.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really like creating monsters for Paizo. I would like to continue to do that if I can make up some other weird, cool ideas. I think they have a great supply of authors, including freelance authors that are coming up with fun stuff. Yeah, but it was fun. The adventure path as a whole, I think, had some good monsters, but it was also one of the most, I guess, grounded of adventure paths, because it's only 1 to 7. So many of your opponents were humanoids, you know, just different aliens or a bunch of Aslanti, as you can imagine. You guys fought a lot of Aslanti in each book. What do we have? We didn't have too many large creatures, I don't think, at any point, right?
We had the Twin Soul.
The
Twin Soul at the very end there, yeah.
The worm that I thought was evil and going to eat us, but ended up being friendly.
Water elemental wasn't large, was it?
No.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Patrick. All of them, the people that we rescued from the prison, was there any surprises or secrets that we missed with them?
With them, no, not really. One of them was a little homicidal against the Aslanti, but you guys were very capable in taking out the guards before they got up there, or otherwise they would have like jumped into combat and like started scratching their eyes out. But no, for the most part, you guys thankfully didn't leave them behind. We got to save them this season. It's, you know, kind of a moral conundrum. One of the things that taking them with you precludes you from doing is sneaking out of the prison. If you wanted to sneak out of the prison on a spacecraft, I forget the name of the vessel that you fought at the end of book 2, but it scans you, and if there's only like 5 life forms, 5 or 6 life forms on board, you can like bluff them in a certain way. But if there's like 10 or 12, they're like, oh, that's a prison break of some sort.
So we could have bypassed that whole starship combat?
I want to say there's something in the rules about that. Yes, if you make it out, I mean, I think that would be ultra hard mode to get out of Golta without tripping any alarms.
If only Wynn had gotten his way. Left all those people behind.
Well, there's that, and then
I would love to see someone do a like a passive run of the Against the Aeon Throne where it's only non-lethal damage, and you don't kill anyone. You just take everyone prisoner, and you go through Golta without firing a shot.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, I feel like book 1 very possible to do that because you're just going up against these cadets for the most part.
I feel like book 3 might be harder to do that.
Book 3 a little harder.
Yeah, the Sardat has a pretty high case. So.
Well, I should say, I don't want to get too far ahead, but the Sardat is one of the biggest changes that I brought to this book. And people out there that have played this before know it's like, wait a minute, what? You use a Vanguard? The Vanguard didn't exist as a class when this book came out. So obviously it was not in the AP. I made Sardat Zolan Ulivestra a Vanguard to match up kind of closer to Kaz, as they are clones of each other, which we'll get to in a second. But
yeah, I'm looking at it, and he's supposed to be a Solarian.
Originally a Solarian, yes, which
is very interesting.
Way scarier.
Well, considering
way
scarier. Yes.
Well, considering that Kaz, when he started his development, was going to be a Solarian.
I thought that was very funny. Yes. So when something we can tell people, I think we've mentioned maybe once or twice before, maybe in our Discord, that when we started the process for making the characters, which was kind of around October of last year, maybe like 5 months in advance or so, you were doing a punching Solarian, Drew, and Rebecca was doing a Mystic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then the playtest came out, and we're like, wait a minute, the Witch Warper and the Vanguard fit these two ideas you had for characters so much better. And
yeah, listeners out there who listen to our Halloween episodes know that I enjoy a Mindbreaker Mystic, so that's what I was planning to play. But,
right. Yeah, and that's kind of what Talara was. You know, she was all up in your face.
I kept a lot of the same flavor, like characterization that I was planning for my Mindbreaker Mystic. But yeah, when the Witch Warper came out, it sounded like potentially a lot of fun and different. And I liked the idea of a charisma-based spellcaster. And so yeah, it kind of ticked a bunch of boxes for me.
But yeah, Zolan was indeed a Solarian at first, and Solarian NPCs are kind of scary in Starfinder in that they can potentially do a lot of damage. Imagine being on that bridge with him and him supernovaing and basically hitting everyone.
I would not fight a Solarian on that bridge, just to be honest.
It would have been very dangerous. But let's get into some more questions. I think I have a question for Drew because we just mentioned it. Drew, I knew when we started that Kaz was going to be a little bit of a focus of this season because of you wanting to do like a former Aslanti soldier as part of your backstory. Did you have any inkling though of episode 112's reveal beforehand? And
no, I didn't.
Okay.
And so I will say, I think I've mentioned this in passing a couple of times, but Kaz having memory loss was not my original intention. He was not going to be a guy that had any. He had a full backstory. He realized the error of the Aslanti Empire and da 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 da. But
Kaz technically doesn't have a lot of memory loss. He just doesn't have those
doesn't have a lot of memory.
Which was when I was like going through trying to figure out what to do with him story wise. I was like, oh, I can tell Drew he does remember his childhood, but in reality, he never had.
So, and this is where I expected him to be associated with somebody at some point, whether it was I felt like the Kaz I am your father would have been a little too on the nose. I didn't think you would do that. But
did Obi-Wan ever tell you about your father?
But I expected more just like he's maybe the son of somebody else or somebody's nephew or some other relation.
You're going right to the top here.
Yeah, but no, clone was out of left field, and then the other clone reveal. What?
That one came a little bit later when I realized like how kind of important Evandrian might be to the general plot. I knew that there was going to be like other clones, because why would you have just one clone? That doesn't make any sense. But when I added in the bit of you potentially being a former love interest of Lieutenant Sharu, I was like, well, why? Maybe that's just someone else. And I think I put in some notes like, looks a little bit different haircut, yada yada. But I thought that there was a lot that we could do kind of like story wise with clones. I know it just came out at the very end, but I'm hoping that it'll allow people to go back and re-listen and be like, oh, well, there's some weird foreshadowing stuff in there.
So when did you make that determination for Evandrian to be?
Like I said, maybe at the end of book 1, end of book 2, because I was looking ahead and looking on how like, all right, well, where will this be revealed? There's actually not that much interaction with the Aeon Guard until you get to Gulta in book 2. So I was like, oh, well, maybe they'll show up here or something along those lines. But then, yeah, when I saw Evandrian was a total bad mother pronker in his own right. He was a CR7 Aeon Guard specialist as well. So he was the same difficulty as the Sardat. If you can imagine that.
So I can imagine that, because when a particular reveal happened in that episode and someone joined the fight, I don't remember if I cursed and it needed to be edited out, but I thought Evandrian was joining that fight and I was upset about it.
Oh yeah, can you imagine if at the end of 113 instead of Bumfuzzle coming up, it's like, hey, it's me, Evandrian, and I'm just gonna kill you guys. He's a level 7, maybe CR6. I forget which, CR6 or CR7 operative.
Yeah, I think when I looked it up, it was CR7,
and he's got a
super
jetpack,
dangerous.
I think, if memory serves. So he's got like a fly speed. He's just be flying over the chasm and shooting you guys.
Oh boy.
And yeah, doing what, like 3d8 extra damage on each of those hits. But
48 at that level, yeah, it's brutal.
If you hadn't discovered the Parapet Amandrea's battle regalia or the notes, I think, in Aurelios, then you don't have a chance to convince him to turn against the Sardat. You guys had mentioned like 1 or 2 things to him and brought that up at the very end. Basically, that end fight, that boss fight, could be very different. It could be Evandrian and the Sardat, just 2 on the party, or if Evandrian leaves for whatever reason, the Sardat and some Aeon Guards. So that can play out very differently. I don't know which. Maybe we should do a special episode where we try that fight again with
you just want to TPK us with Evandrian.
It would definitely be much harder.
Spade a spade. You just want to
Well, I'll tell you what, yeah, he might not be running away from fear.
Yep.
the Aeon
That would
Guard.
not have worked on Evandrian.
I mean, but I do like that the author gave that option, because it really made it feel like our exploration of the base was.
Yes, and there's actually an optional other space event at the very end, I think instead of the Star Runner, which is those 4 Aslanti fighters coming to your rescue or to the Star Runner's rescue, and instead it being a series of fighters that you're fighting in the Phoenix's Respite.
Is there any chance that we could have gotten that armor off him?
Yeah, if you guys had, you didn't really know what it was exactly, but if you had rolled high enough and figured out there was indeed some conjuration magic to it, and perhaps the capability of teleporting with it, which is, that failsafe it had built into it, I think you can try and, pin him down and take the armor off, as crazy as that is. But that's an option. Obviously they have, kind of written well, what if the Sardat dies in the fight, which is a possibility, with the massive damage rules, or, taking the armor off, or whatever else could stop that from potentially happening. And that's where the end is a little different. You can do a couple different things. Book 3, the Rune Drive Gambit, there is a lot of different things you could do in that one as well. The 3 different laboratories, you can basically do it in any order, so I thought that was kind of fun. Let's talk about another specific episode, including episode 112, going back to it. Everyone, did you think that we indeed had our first character death when Bumfuzzle fell off that bridge?
Yes.
The boss fight. Yeah, we played it up.
I had my suspicions, and I will tell you why.
Oh.
Jabert didn't seem super, super mad about it.
Oh.
Yeah.
The way there was a moment, the way you guys were kind of conferring that it made me suspicious, but at the same time, the way that things were going, I was like, oh, well, I guess Bumfuzzle's dead. I guess Jabert just doesn't really care that much about Bumfuzzle.
Jabert's had a whole week. Actually, was it 2 weeks between?
We had some heated discussions about.
We took a week off.
Trying to figure out saving Bumfuzzle.
Yeah, no, there's we talked a lot about it.
We got into it.
even
talk on the Discord, I'm sure, with fans about that as well.
Even to the point of if Bumfuzzle went in the Rune Drive vision and saved Collywobble, maybe Collywobble shows up and saves Bumfuzzle, and just random nonsense.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys had so much faith in me, because I sort of thought I was going to die.
So
we had some talk in the week in between where we actually sort of talked about all right, what's going to happen if, and exactly what the conditions were under which Bumfuzzle would actually stone cold die. But it was close.
Well, that's the thing. I did some practice rolls, I think, right after we got done recording that episode. I was and they were pretty low. They're 50s or in the 60s damage, and that's 17d6. I was oh, well, I'll just wait, and I'll tell him, how much damage it's gonna be when we get back to it live. And then when we got closer to it, I did some rolls in Roll20, and they started creeping up to 80 damage.
Yeah.
I was oh, that's a definite murder. So, I think anyone being tossed that amount is, getting knocked out at the very least. That is a good amount of damage. But the main thing, and besides the main reason he picked on Bumfuzzle, is because you got that turn 1 trick attack off where you really beamed him in the head with your pistol, and I think did the most damage to him until 5 turns later.
It was a ridiculous amount of turns later. Speaking of turns, we did notice after the fact that y'all were counting turns pretty. Why are they so worried about what turn it is?
Yeah, well, that's because the reason, another good reason that Bumfuzzle was the one that got knocked off was I think he probably is one of the few characters that could have gotten out of the hole with jump jets. I guess if not Wynn had fallen down, Wynn could climb out.
Yeah, Wynn has a climb speed, so he could have gotten out.
Kaz had been using his jump jets a lot.
Oh yes, no, I was keeping track of everyone's jump jets. Believe it or not, I'm that GM, and I think you only had 3 left. So I was well, probably maybe you shouldn't throw him off until he's the last one on the bridge, because I would feel bad if turn 1 you got knock down the hole. It's like, come get me later.
And the Sarda's like,
your big
no, my
climactic
organs.
This is like your big climactic fight, and he just like tosses you down a hole. It's like, all right, everybody, you're the boss now.
It could have been a Scar Mufasa situation though, where like he uses his jump jets, gets almost to the bridge, and then he's like help me. Yeah. No?
Probably not.
And then he kills his dad. Yeah.
And then he kills him. I mean, it would be a Scar Mufasa thing.
Nikithi's at the edge. Long live Cattywampus.
Oh God, they knew each other. One of the last questions I have for you guys is what we will end this episode on, and that is, what are your favorite moments from season 2? Let's hold on to that though, and switch gears and go to some of our super mega fans listener questions. And we have a few from a few folks. Let's go first to superfan John, aka John30041, and he's got a question for each of you guys. So real quick, rapid fire style. Drew and Rebecca's are kind of simple, but Drew, looking back now that we have COM, the character operations manual, would you have taken a different Vanguard specialty?
So I looked at the playtest again and looked at the operations manual, and the biggest difference in the specialties for what we were doing, because we knew ahead of time that we were going to get to level 6 max, basically.
Yeah.
That half of the stuff for the
it's like level 12 and level 18 is when you get like those extra abilities.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing so the one downside to picking what I picked from a play perspective is that there are at level 4 you get the aspect reaction aspect embodiment, maybe. I can't remember the specific name of it, but it's what allows you to get an extra entropy point by doing something in a battle. Right. And the one I picked was make a change happen to a character. And so we fudged that a little bit eventually to make that be death can cause this to happen, because technically that is a change of status on a character. So, because I got improved dirty trick. So if I was worried about entropy points and generating entropy points, that would be a big change. But looking at the operations manual, they have added so many ways to earn entropy points that is kind of mitigated completely.
Yeah. Earn and spend. So they added some more stuff in there. Rebecca, very similar question now, having played the Witch Warper for a season and looking at the COM. Are you happy with the final changes to the class?
It's really hard to say because I haven't played with those rules, but from what I've read, I am really, 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 really happy. I cannot stress enough that they've revamped Infinite Worlds, because that was the biggest source of frustration for me, is that one of the Witch Warper's like key abilities, the thing that makes them a Witch Warper, was to me pretty useless, like except in very specific circumstances.
Yeah, so it was free in the playtest. So I mean, it just takes the action, but I think you burn a spell, but it actually like inflicts some statuses or some negatives.
Yeah, well, and I like the freedom of it, because the way that the COM phrases it is like you can do like environmental infinite worlds and whatever. I mean, so it's restricted in that way, but the flavor text you can add to it is infinite, like you can come up with any reason that they are now blinded, or any reason that for whatever reason the ground is shaken up, and like I think that's part of what I really drew me to the Solarian class, was that I felt like all the abilities were so cinematic and I could picture them in my mind, and like even if I'm not great about describing them on air, they're clear in my head, and so I thought that was
very different Solarians, based on those powers you pick. Kind of how you flavor the Witch Warper. You're kind of a demonic Witch Warper, so you're maybe someone from the same dimensions you're getting those demons from, the endless supply of demons. Jabert, moving on to you. I don't think this is a question you can answer, but maybe. Are there any trick attacks that Patrick, shot down when you were started saying them? And a follow-up question, what was your favorite trick attack?
Oh, man.
Go back and listen to 40 episodes.
Right. I mean, I won't lie to you. I don't remember all of them.
I have.
Some of my favorites were the ones that failed, and we like made up a reason like why they would fail. So like going for the Aslante's knees never worked because they have like extra armor there.
Right.
You're always trying to like take out their knees, and it never seemed to shake out.
I would say like to the first part of the question. I mean, you sort of let me play in the space as much as I wanted to. I think maybe once or twice you were like. Holy crap, Jabert, just please finish your sentence, finish your thought.
Oh, yeah. I think there's more than just me saying that.
Yeah,
While
there were probably a lot of people listening who were thinking that, yeah. As far as a favorite one, the ones that I got from the Bumfuzzle challenge was... That I mean, there were some real treasures in there. I really liked when we got into that really tight room in book 1, and just like there ended up just being like lots of things that reminded me of a rave, and I was like, oh yeah, dubstep grenades coming out.
Yeah, Dubstep Grenade was pretty great. Thank you to our fans for submitting to all of our challenges.
Yeah, thank you everybody. I appreciate that. It really makes me feel good.
Tyler, on to you. Any different choices you'd make looking back for Nikithi or Idis? And John says, why wasn't Idis the superior space dog, the Tashtari, aka Laser Wolves?
The laser wolves weren't chosen because they do not have a susceptibility to salt, which is something that the Akata and the Osharu share, which I thought was...
A little synergy there.
A little fun synergetic thing. I want to really quickly answer the question, Jabert's question, which is the favorite trick attack. And by far, mine is the 3-book commitment to the joke of the pocket hobgar.
Oh, yeah.
That was installed in book 1, and then he pulled out the Pokemon in the final, like one of the final fights, and that I was muted and laughing hysterically. In terms of would I do anything different? I mean, if you're a Patreon subscriber, thank you. Also, you would have heard my tirade against drone mechanics, I think in our one of our episodes for 1.5. Is there a lot I would do differently? Yes. I mean, I had a concept going into Nikithi, which is that he would be very science forward, of a very scientific mind, and thus wouldn't really be one for combat. He didn't and it was those situations where sometimes he just didn't shoot a gun, or he really didn't get involved in the combat. He was always far away. When we were on Nacondas, he didn't like being outside. He prefers a lab. Those are character decisions.
Though I think you can do that, and I think you did do that with.
I did do that, but I think it greatly limits the efficacy and enjoyability of the character, because there were just some times where I had built a box around the character concept, and sometimes I just and an example would be in that final fight with the Sardat. I had to have Nikithi do something because Bumfuzzle, I thought, was dead. So I was like, oh, we just need to throw a body in there to take damage. Otherwise, we could all die here.
Yeah, you rushed up.
Yeah, and so I think if I had done it, if I had to do it again, I think I would have made Nikithi very similar, but I would have also had him do a lot of more quote-unquote weapons testing with living weapons in actual combat situations, and flavored it that way so that he was actually shooting things. I would have given him long arm proficiency, and there are a few guns that have the herring fire special property, so that he could have used that. I think I would have done that instead. And in general, I tried to make Idis a all-rounder combat drone, and I think I would have specialized her more. I would have focused her more keenly. We had a lot of melee characters and a lot of hallways, and so sometimes it was just hard to maneuver Idis into a position where she could be effective. And shooting through a bear wasn't always good either. So, I would have done a lot differently. But I still had fun with what I did do.
I was about to say, but I mean, towards the end in this boss fight, you had Idis had an overcharged crit with her gun. It was blowing away some Aeon Guard.
Yeah. So. I really did like the synergy between being able to overcharge her and then the occasions when Rebecca would use Talara's shifting surge.
Oh boy, yeah.
So those shifting surged overcharged shots. And
it was like you guys loading the cannon up.
yeah, were really great. And as Idas gains power, you could even put a weapon that has boost in her. And we didn't get to see this, but later on in the build, Nikithi would actually take a level in Technomancer so that he could have access to supercharged weapon. So the ideal build is a round where Nikithi can use supercharged weapon and boost the gun. Idas could boost her gun and do a single standard attack. So it's one attack with three boosts. Yeah, it's just this massive Cannonite blast. It's literally rolling one dice to determine the difference between no damage or 50 damage.
Well, yeah, if you guys go back and listen to when you guys leveled up to level 6, I thought you were taking Technomancer at that level, which is why I was like, oh, nothing big happening for you this level, right? And you're like, you are correct.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
So I felt like I had to take the level 6 in the drone because the BAB went up. Like Idas has a hard time hitting, and in order to make that triple boost shot worth it, I feel like her BAB has to be at a certain place. But in the end, I actually think that she would have been better as a stealth drone because she would have had a higher dex in there, and then putting the long arm in there, and then doing the triple boost shot, and then I probably could have done it at level 6 or level 7. Probably level 7 would have been a good one for the Technomancer, but we love you.
But we wrapped up at level 7. We did. Miles, what was your favorite part of Wynn's backstory, and where do you think he's going after this mission is all done?
Well, I mean, the second part of that question's kind of been answered in our last episode.
Yeah, you're out there. You're exploring as a Knight of the Greenway.
Yeah. So my favorite part of Wynn's backstory, I think, was the tortured revolutionary, I guess, that kind of trope, kind of like, Mal from Firefly. There's always this catastrophe where they had led previously that ended in disaster. And even though I didn't really get to flesh it out initially, when we went back with the Rune Drive and I got to really kind of dive into the moment that he would change in his heart of hearts with that young kid who had died in our universe, getting to see like the scene play out differently. I think that was kind of my favorite part, is getting to flesh that out a little bit more. Yeah.
And one thing that comes up when you go and seek atonement is you're gonna have to forgive. Wynn will have to forgive themselves. I was hoping one of your teammates would die, so you would get to have that pathos once more for the podcast. But once again, your 4 teammates would not go down.
Yeah,
I ran that home a few times, anticipating potential bad things happening in Golta and Aurelos, storming very similar fortified locations, just like in your ill-fated mission. But for the most part, this was a rewriting of history, because not only did you not lose anybody, but in both places, Golta and Aurelos, you saved lives. You brought people out. Let's move on to another superfan, Donald, aka Wookie Gunner. Have some general questions for everyone, but also another Miles specific question. Miles, if you knew then what you know now, would you have played a large size character? Those hallways.
For this campaign, no. I would have done something else. I grew to like when I made him. I just didn't have the kind of connection I had when I made Raimi. And I don't know if my co-hosts feel the same about their season 2 characters, but I still felt a lot closer to my season 1 character. I also spent more time with them, but I also spent more time creating them. Whereas when started with me seeing the photo of the uplifted bear, and I had to put my hat down for that. Everything else came later, and I grew to really like the character that he was becoming. I wish that I had the knowledge of who that was before I started the campaign. I feel like I would have been a little bit, I wasn't as confident, especially playing a captain character. I think every single time you asked me, what does the captain want to do? I hesitated. You may have edited it to sound differently, but I was always like, I don't know.
Well, and not to mention that there are certain large characters that come with reach as a standard function, and uplifted bears do not. So
certainly a negative for them, but it's hilarious that this AP just so happened to have a reach weapon with the trident. So like very early on in book one.
Yeah, we lucked out. Otherwise, I would have been really frustrated by Win for most of the AP.
Yeah, but one of the things that I am very, as proud of you as can be for a friend. Miles did something very different for him and challenging. And even though I know you were frustrated with the hallways at times, I still think you did a great job with Win. I was still very interested in what he was doing. So I hope, I know you were frustrated with it, but I think it was pretty cool.
I think I was frustrated with my build. I wanted to do a melee character. And I've also got to do that in a lot of our special editions with melee characters that would build correctly, unlike my character. And again, this is where my relative inexperience comes through. But I'd rather make those mistakes myself and learn from them than just have someone like, you should do this, and this. And, I feel like I get more of a learning experience out of it. And I had wanted to take the Envoy. I thought it would be a cool idea, but honestly, we did not really need some of the things from the Envoy that I thought we would. Whereas in the first AP, it seemed to got us out of some clutch situations. And in this adventure, I don't think it mattered once the entire time.
It did, but it would never. Well, we never got past +1, which is it's 5% for the most part. So if you did it like every single fight, it would only matter for normally 5% of the attacks that we roll.
Right.
But
I will say, as someone who required a lot of help in making sure that some of my abilities went off, personally, I was like, I just want that +1. Come on. But I needed the +1 from get 'em and the +2 from flanking and everything. Right.
Yeah, looking for all those things to offset if you want to go for that sweet double attack. This next question from Wookie Gunner is kind of in the same vein of what we've just been talking about, without giving any spoilers. Please remember that. Feel free to anti-spoil, say things that are not happening. But how did your guys' experiences with Season 1 and Season 2 influence your characters for Season 3? Are you guys all playing envoys? Is that what's happening in Season 3?
Yeah. We were just going to this Quinn envoy. We're doing the Quanvoy.
Yeah, it's a Barber Sharp quintet.
I know I definitely wanted to get back to my roots. Yes.
So you're playing a Vesk?
No, he's playing a plant. He said roots.
Yeah.
Gorin.
Yeah, read between the lines. Oh, yeah, Gorin or Khazar. I know when Khazar's first came out, I really wanted to play as one. I never got to, but
yeah. I'm trying to think what other ideas we had for the Season 2 characters that got kind of changed. We talked about Kaz and Talara.
Well, one thing for Kaz, and I didn't really know it until we actually started the campaign, because I guess I wasn't paying attention. I know initially when Drew was making Kaz, the character himself was completely different. Like, it was more of a Johnny Cage former actor, or was current actor, and was like kind of doing a method thing to study for a role or something. And it wasn't until yeah, no, you had this whole thing, because going to the first episode, I was a little surprised by the character, because
it's different.
from initial conversations, I still thought that's where you were going with that character. And so it took me a little while to get used to what you ended up going with.
So much like Tyler, for season 3, I'm looking forward to getting back to my roots. For Season 2, I was really trying to do much like Miles. I was trying to do something out of my comfort zone, and I think I succeeded in that. Spellcasters are not my thing. All those people out there who think I'm playing a mystic in Season 3 are very, very wrong. I somehow missed everything in Season 2 because I was not having fun with that. Maybe I'm just a really good actress, but yeah. I mean, I love Talara. She's great, but I'm done budgeting my spells. That was not fun for me, and I knew it wouldn't be. So I'm looking forward to doing something a little different that isn't quite that mechanic.
One of the greatest things I miss is the from season 1 is when Alindra would explode and Adros was in the way, and you would just like look at me and go, "Sorry."
I did that to Kat this season, and he got really mad at me. I don't understand.
Because Adros has so many ways to do damage resistance against
fire
solar.
resistance.
You have mitigate. You have mitigate. You could have done all the things Adros did.
I have mitigate if I'm lucky enough to have an entropy point.
I'm so glad
Got plenty of entropy points.
we reminded Drew and Tyler about this. Jabert, how excited are you to play Cattywampus in season 3?
We're doubling down on Goblin Operative.
Goblins forever.
I think. Oh, go ahead, Jabert.
Oh yeah, I was going to say.
I think people could tell that was a joke, and we could leave it there, right?
I don't know. Some people are dead
Well, like
set
I said,
on some of the stuff that
no
we
spoilers. Like this is basically wrong answers only kind of thing.
No,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. I'll just like finish my thought. At the end of season 1, I promised myself I was going to do something strength based. So obviously, I made the dexiest operative. I did a strength based character for exactly 1 stream, and I was like, that was fun. All right, back to dexterity. I think that was like my New Year's resolution. Was like I was going to try out a strength based character, and I just didn't do it.
Yeah,
so
people are a little bummed that Starfinder is kind of ruled damage wise by strength based characters, but I mean, to use those weapons, you got to get up in combat, and that puts a whole lot of people in danger.
Well, and I mean, it was one of the things that I sort of enjoyed about that I sort of didn't expect about the operative when I started was exactly how much of a switch hitter you could be. You could stand like far back and shoot with your pistol, or get up into the mix and stab with a knife, or
when armory came out and
hit with a pistol.
Yeah, when you can start not hitting, but hitting people with the butt of your gun. That changes things a good deal because you can have that free hand too.
Yeah, when I was sort of I don't know. I felt just maybe a little bit plus minus on operatives until I saw the Gadgeteer, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I think that's what I want. I think that's what I want." And then I saw Pistol Whip, and I saw like a bunch of stuff, a bunch of the operative tricks and things that came out in that one, and I was like, "Oh man, this is A+ stuff here."
Let's move on to another fan. Miles, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to answer the question about decisions for season 3 characters. With both of my prior characters, at least from a narrative perspective, they kind of come from similar places, kind of tortured backgrounds. And for season 3, I'm taking that, but I'm making it so that I'm having a lot more fun with it. Like my season 3 character is definitely tailored around, making something that's supposed to be fun to play, both in terms of gameplay and in terms of role play.
Yeah, I told you guys to get a little dark and not go like crazy on your backstories for season 2, specifically because so much of the adventure it's not railroady, but it is, unless it ties in with the Aslanti or like this weird outpost in the middle of space. Outpost said, there's not a lot of places to catch on to. But exploring like your character's journey, like as you go through the adventure, was what I was trying to focus on. For season 3, we're doing it a little different. Once again, you got to play that character that you're going to enjoy playing, and they will have time, hopefully, in these 6 APs volumes to really dig in and get to allow each character to have a little background focus, kind of like we had in season 1. So for me, answering that question, that is, storytelling wise, I think 1 and 2 are a little bit different. Season 3 is going to be kind of a mix of both of those. And I'm excited to get to that. One last question from our fans and Discord moderator and super fan C Diddy, aka Cody. This is a good one. What was your favorite and least favorite encounter where there has to be combat or defusing a bomb or staring down a weird alien in a marketplace. I can answer mine very easily. It might be one of your guys' favorites, but one of my least favorite encounters was the Dralic cultist fights. I don't know if you remember them because they were over like that. They were just a bit too weak. And both times you fought them, you just kind of like walked right through them like they were made of tissues. So
I think the most memorable moment for me of the entire AP in terms of like favorite moment where this felt like high drama and high risk, high reward was Rebecca's clutch crit in book 1.
Well, right.
That was going to be my favorite moment.
I'm pretty sure that's everyone's favorite moment.
We're not.
I've got a different one.
We're not talking about favorite moments. We're talking about least and favorite encounters.
Encounters, like overall.
We're going to go to favorite moments at the end. But
okay.
My favorite encounter. My favorite encounter is when Evandrian has those hostages in that death cell or whatever. I can't remember what it was.
Power core.
The power core. I loved that because like Bumfuzzle and Nikithi were desperately trying to figure out how to disengage the power core that he had rigged up. Kaz was desperately trying to negotiate with Evandrian. Everybody, there was a moving piece. I think even Miles was like, "Oh, Wynn hits it with a trident," and like
I was useless in that encounter.
I was going to say that was going to be my least favorite encounter because I felt like there was nothing I could do. Like I think Miles and I were like, "All right, we stand here and yell at the intercom."
But I did really like that. I feel like there was a lot of tension. Bumfuzzle and Nikithi were racing to try to do something. Kaz was desperately trying to convince Evandrian to speak to his humanity.
With my super high charisma score.
Well, yeah, but character-wise, I mean, I'm not talking about mechanics. I'm just talking about character-wise. I thought that was a very, very cool moment. My least favorite my least favorite encounter would be any encounter that we only fought as Lanty meat bags. Essentially, just like whenever the AP was just like, here's 4 Aslanti soldiers, just kill them and let's get out of the way. Essentially, those were my least favorite.
Sometimes those weren't fun because the Aslanti don't run away. Like, I mean, also their descriptions, the Aeon Guard, they fight until the death. So there's not a lot of things you could do except grind out those fights.
Right.
My favorite encounter, an example of that, was indeed the Lieutenant Sharu fight. Not only because she was so deadly, she had those cadets with her, and it was after you guys had gone through this gauntlet of exploring the rest of the ship and having these other fights. So you're all kind of, really hurt. I think that's where Starfinder really shines, is when you do those dungeon dives. You're able to get those stamina points back, but you're still, on the edge. Like anything could happen, like someone dying, someone getting critted and dying, which did not happen, but was a possibility every time she attacked.
Well, Talara was feeling very bedraggled at the end of that gauntlet. I mean, with no spells left, I was worthless in that fight.
And that was home to the Talara crit that we talked about. That saved everything.
Right, yeah, the crit where you could remove a condition and you removed the dying
favorite moment.
I think weirdly enough, the one that sticks out is one of my least favorite encounters, and I'm sure that there are others that I've not loved. But early on, the water elemental, it was beating the heck out of me and everybody else, and it
was
felt
a brutal encounter.
It felt so OP for level 1. I felt so useless. And
that was one fight where I crit twice in one turn. The other one was on Kaz in book 3, where he critted twice in one turn.
I know that we were talking about favorite and least favorite encounters, but the least favorite encounter is the one where Kaz got crit twice in the same turn.
How selfish.
Anyone else favorite or least favorite encounters? I like hearing both, but I really want to hear your least favorite encounters, especially.
Yeah, I think. And I hope I'm not just saying this because it's the thing that's most on my mind. But I really did enjoy most of the encounters in this book. Mm-hmm. I mean, I felt like Bumfuzzle had stuff to do in every fight. If we were at range, he could shoot. If we were up close, he could get in there and scrap it up. There were. I mean, I think some of the ones that I would probably put on the weaker side are just the sort of less memorable. You know, I mean, just because even the ones where it was really hard and I got my butt handed to me. I mean, like, you know, that's not like, that doesn't mean I didn't like it. It's just like I might have been really frustrated at the time. But I was gonna say the thing that I wasn't. I think it was this last Starship Combat. This last Starship Combat. I wasn't a big fan of that one. And I couldn't exactly tell you why, but we ended up getting into sort of a loop there, where like, you know, even though I was getting the advantage on the initiative because our maneuverability wasn't as good, I was just unable to maneuver effectively against this other ship, and so it was a real pain in the butt.
I'll agree. Well, and I agree with you that it felt repetitive somehow, probably because I kept missing. That was another thing that was frustrating.
Wait 5 minutes to get through all the other turns and then
exactly only to miss again. Yeah.
We also made sure to have that. I'm sorry, Rebecca. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, compared to some of the other Starship combats that we've had this season, I felt like it was particularly uninteresting. Like somehow some of the other ones we've had felt really dynamic in ways that Starship combat hasn't before for me.
Oh, yeah. The first fight against the Bearazad is one of my favorite Starship encounters we've ever done. I've ever done in any Starfinder game.
Yeah, that honestly might be my favorite. I apologize. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, for that reason, it felt a little anticlimactic for that to be the last thing that we did in the AP was the least interesting Starship combat that we had, you know? But
yeah. I was going to say the Bearazad might have been my favorite. Sort of the moment, like sort of the first time that I ever did a flyby, and I was like, "This rules."
We'll do this forever. Well, let's I'm going to do this forever. I hope that eventually the enemies don't get good enough to do this to me every turn.
Right. I'm actually surprised that someone didn't mention as their least favorite encounter the small spider beings in Outpost Z.
No, those are great. That fight was awesome.
Well, I mean, Wynn couldn't even participate. Miles literally sat for 30 minutes and did nothing.
He was just shouting. What I did. I drank wine and put myself on mute.
Oh yeah.
When in doubt, drink wine and put yourself on mute. There's your shirt, folks.
You know, Tyler, you have a good point. Between this and our Pathfinder stream that we did for my birthday with the spiders that I couldn't hit ever. Yeah, I think I just hate spiders in RPGs. Let's never fight a spider again.
I think you're right.
They were, I think, 6-legged. They're Audios. Yeah. That one was rough. I ratcheted up the difficulty a little bit there because they're really like one of the few fights that you have at that point in Outpost Z besides the aforementioned Dralic cultists who you guys walked all over. Yeah. Let's get to this last question before we wrap up here. Talk about your guys' favorite moments. Now, this is for the entire season. It doesn't have to be combat. It doesn't have to be something major, but something that happened that they really enjoyed.
Well, as alluded to earlier, I think saving Bumfuzzle from death with a critical hit effect, realizing that death is a condition or dying is a condition, and I can clear that because I have a critical hit card that lets me clear a condition or something like that.
Yeah, I'm going back and looking through them now to see if I can double check what it was, but it was like an inspiring shot that allows someone to, I think, ignore the condition for, X amount of time, if memory serves. And how amazing.
And he came back and critical hit, right? Yeah. It was amazing, especially when I was feeling so, like I said before, Talar was feeling pretty bedraggled in that fight. So for that to be the end of it was very, very exciting. Very cinematic.
Oh yeah, exactly what you needed for that fight. And basically on that same note, Bumfuzzle murdering the boss at 1 HP after coming back. This last fight, it's we were counting the turns because we knew it was going to take 6 turns to ascend out of that pit after he realized, it was his turn immediately after he fell, so he could stabilize like right then and there. So we were doing some math on that, and I was like, I wonder if anyone's going to be alive at that point. And then you guys proceeded just to roll awful for a couple of turns. I was like, oh, okay,
a couple of turns. A couple of turns.
I sent Patrick a note over in Discord. I was like, looks like we're going to turn 9. On turn 5, I was like, I'm calling it. We're going to turn 9.
Yeah,
I was just convinced in that fight, any crit was gonna end this, and then I crit, and it didn't end it. I was like, ah.
That segues pretty well into my favorite moment, which I alluded to. Well, we kind of alluded to early in the episode. My favorite moment was dropping Bumfuzzle down the hole. And you can at me and hate me, but I love villain. They're my favorite. They're always my favorite. They're my favorite thing about RPGs. They're my favorite things about movies. And, I compare it to, there's another moment I can kind of compare it to, which is a feeling really, which was the feeling when Adros got force walled. Except I felt like this was way worse. When Bumfuzzle got dropped down that ravine, the feeling I had was so real. And I think that's my favorite moment because there's you only get a few times where you can feel dread in a TTRPG. And that was one of them. And although it was sadness, I just love that moment because I was sold. And
I think part of that might be because we'd been hearing about the Sardat like the whole time. We'd been building up to the fight with the Sardat for 3 books straight. It was like,
right,
this person works for the Sardat. The Sardat owns this moon. We're going to the Sardat's base on this asteroid. It was all sort of centered around that villain. And then when we actually met with them, it's like, yeah, we've sort of heard, nasty stories about this dude, but then for the dude to do something truly dastardly was like it fit with the character. I think that we were all like, oh yeah, that's a bad dude. Oh, look how bad he's doing. He threw a goblin down a hole.
Yeah. And the best part was he did it to antagonize Kaz. You were an afterthought. He did it solely to just to make Kaz feel lesser and like useless.
Guys, I don't know if you've met the Aslanti. They're not big on non-human.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, and so I mean, there was so much of it that made it a great moment, both just like what it, how it made me feel, and also what it was for exactly what you said, Jabert. I agree wholeheartedly.
I think my favorite moment was hanging out with the Glimshar pirates. Those guys ruled.
Oh, they were awesome. Actually, I think Talara would like to recruit them to join her in her search for the android.
Yeah, so I wrote that down as well, as the weirdness of making friends and enemies on Outpost Z is probably some of the most fun I've had GMing in Starfinder, and is kind of right there neck and neck with the people of Istamek in book 4 of Dead Suns. And it's one of those things that it felt real sci-fi. It felt real in universe and real there. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do.
I haven't seen Farscape, but I think it's like Farscape. Isn't that what Farscape's like? With like weird creatures everywhere?
Yeah.
I mean, there's pretty weird. I mean, there were Henson puppets actually.
And giant Paralith walking around.
People were talking smack about the Zarb on Discord today, and I was not having that.
The Zarb is maybe my favorite.
The Zarb rules. Oh man,
I want to be a Zarb in season 3. Yeah,
be his friend so bad.
Season 3 of Cosmic Crit, all Zarbs.
Swarm the
great
Zarb.
audio.
Oh boy,
whoever wins, we lose.
So this is truly the end of an era, as we spent 73 episodes with the Drift Rider crew, and now 41 episodes with that of the Phoenix's Respite.
It's been almost a year, right?
Almost, yeah. We started, I think, 74 or 75 was in March. I went back and looked at it today. So 10 months, somewhere in there. Yeah. But we've been with these characters for so much longer because you guys made them months in advance. So it feels like it's been a bit longer for us. But for our fans, that's still, I think on average, these 3 books were a little bit longer than some of the later ones in Dead Suns. So it was stretched out a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I hadn't thought of it like that. We made our season 1 characters about a week before we started the podcast.
Yeah.
Weeks, maybe.
AP just came out.
I know. Yeah. Well, because we
The book just
released.
came out.
Yeah, we released the day that the game released. We just happened to have some information about some of the things, and we were like, and I was like, I want to be a Robo Man.
Yeah. Yeah, we had descriptions of what the races were like, but you guys didn't actually get to make your characters until like that week.
Yeah.
So having like 4 months to plan them out is a luxury. So that is going to do it for our wrap up of season 2. We got to get out of here. We are taking a short break from recording for the holidays, upcoming holidays. We might have a special episode or two in the future. When we're recording this, when you're listening to this, it's already the end of the year. But we're going to get right back into it immediately into season 3. There's going to be no gap in the podcast feed, as we will still have a new episode of Cosmic Crit out every Monday without fail from here into perpetuity until, like I said, I kill you guys. I kill you all.
And can I just say, I'm really excited for you guys to meet our characters for season 3. They're going to be awesome.
Oh man, yeah. I'm so stoked about season 3. It's going to be a blast.
I think if you
want to give any hints?
Well, I was about to say, if you're a Patreon subscriber at this point, you might have seen or met some of them on our Patreon campaign, because we've been sitting on the art for a long time, and I don't know if I can wait that long to introduce people.
So that clicker finger's getting a little itchy.
Oh yeah, I should probably just go ahead and make those posts right now. But looking back on it, the season was a blast. Personally, very delightful to run as a GM. If you out there are listening to this on the fence about running Against the Aeon Throne, I would say do not hesitate. It is extremely well written. It gives you everything you need to just jump into an adventure, jump into Starfinder. It will not take you years to finish. If you play longer than our 1 to 2 hour sessions weekly, I mean, you can get this done in like 6 months. Pretty simple, I would say. But yeah, that will do it for us. That'll do it for season 2 Cosmic Crit. Guys, thanks for playing with me for the last year. Thank you, Patrick. Last 2 years. And we will see you listeners in season 3.
Bye.
Bye. See you next season.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Cosmic Crit. This episode has been made possible through a sponsorship with Roll20 and the backing of our Critamander fans on Patreon. Thanks again and have a great week.